through movement. And we develop emotional mastery, really good. And speaking of that, emotional martial arts, a guy that I love deeply and I have seen as a psychologist and as a coach. I've been doing this for 30 years. It's a rare thing to see people with a huge skill set, eye to eye, person to person, face to face. I mean, Tony Robbins comes to mind, somebody that has this level of skill set of helping people break through in person in live events. This is my good friend, Giovanni. Giovanni, are you on, brother?
I am. How are you?
Hey, good to see you, my man.
Great seeing you.
Thank you so much for coming. Gio is, as we call him, Lionheart, because you'll see that, man. He'll stick with you no matter what. It's had so many great things happen for him in his life, breaking throughs. You'll hear his story in just a moment. But, we call him the Breakthrough King. He's our training and breakthrough leader of Undisputed Mastery, a great friend of mine, an entrepreneur, real estate investor, team leader. He's been doing real estate over 17 years. But the thing that we need to know about Gio is his passion and his ability to help people get down deep inside of their emotions. Because when it comes down to it, whether it's investing, leading business, leading your family, leading your wife, leading in, safety or anything, you've got to be able to have a high EQ. And we know EQ, that emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence. And if you are stuffing things in your own woundedness, you will not be able to control yourself. Gio is a passionate guy, works with the Scottish Rite Hospital for Children, this fantastic program called Discovery Training, Valiant Hearts, other organizations, lives in Dallas. He's going to be talking to us about how to overcome. To be a champion, you have to be an overcomer. Overcoming fear and anxiety. I mean, they can overtake any of us, especially during a time like when we're in an AOP, an alternative operating practice or procedure in your business, or you're having to stay at home. People are uncertain. People are afraid. Gio is what I call a broker of certainty. Gio, thank you for being here, brother. God bless you, man. I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a great day. It's been so awesome to hear all the passionate speakers so far and learned a lot myself. So again, Keith, Robert, thank you so much for having me on. It's exciting. For me, my passion is serving people and helping people overcome their past and prepare them for the future, right? And so a big part for me, and we won't get into my story a whole lot today, some of you know it, but I've got a history of mental illness. I've struggled with anxiety and depression throughout my adult life because of the expectations that I created. They weren't expectations that the world put on me, they're expectations I put on myself, and they led to some of those battles for me. And so the blessing that I have is I have an incredible support system of people that love me and resources that have helped me through those things. And most importantly, I don't know how many of y'all are believers, but the Bible talks about we have a thorn in our side. And ultimately, about 6 years ago, after long battles, I realized that this is a thorn in my side and a blessing that I get so that I can passionately lead and inspire others through this, because I understand the overall struggle that people go through in life, period, regardless of what the addiction is, what your self-medication of choice is. We all have one, right? Whether it be alcohol, drugs, pornography, work, exercise. There's so many things that we use to self-medicate ourselves. And so a big part that I use is a program that I went through, much like Undisputed Mastery, that's helped me peel back the layers. And it's been a constant peeling of the layers. And I'm going to jump into that today. And so part of the problem is so many of us are unaware of our surroundings, most importantly ourselves. And so we live in what we create a bubble of comfort. And so I'm going to pop something up, Keith, if you don't mind, and we're going to jump off of that. And so here's a quick illustration. This is how most of us live our life, right? We try to find our comfort zone. What are we comfortable with? What makes us feel warm and fuzzy? And frankly, that's not where life is meant to be lived. As you can tell, life is meant to be lived outside of that comfort zone. I call it peeling the layer of the onion. And we've all been through that throughout our lives, whether it be sickness, mental illness, some type of death in our family. Multiple of you have talked about bankruptcy and financial struggles. right now it's the pandemic, right? And so we're going to jump a little deeper into that here in a minute, but we're meant to live life outside of the comfort zone. The comfort zone, at the end of the day, 90% of people live in that comfort zone. Unfortunately, it leads to these things: mediocrity, settling for what we have, being tired, depressed, fear. What if I can't? And so most of the time we live in this place. And so there's few of us, and the leaders of us that step outside of this are able to get through these things. And on the other side of the comfort zone is everything you see there. Just touching on a few of them, passion. I've heard and seen so much passion. I just saw Coach Kirby, and I mean, I love that man so much. He's got so much passion and purpose behind. I've been a part of his gym and seeing his son fight and being part of his family, and it's just amazing to see how he leads. Keith has us all here for example, because he is a passionate leader. And so these guys, and I know their stories, Robert and so many of you other guys that I was able to do Undisputed Mastery with last year, have overcome these things and burst out of those comfort zone bubble. And so there's so many of those things there. We leave a legacy, right? For me, I was so busy trying to leave a legacy of money and stuff that I wasn't focused on helping people. And I did help people and I loved them, but that was not my outward manifestation. Now my purpose is leaving a legacy of hope and peace and joy and so many things that I'm able to help people through with programs like what we do at Undisputed Mastery and spending time with Coach Kirby and his family and others. And so this is what life is about. And so this is a great illustration. Some of y'all might have seen this through this COVID thing. We're going to touch on it on the end, but this is a great illustration of our comfort zone, right? That's where we feel safe. We're in control. It's easy to go about that, right? But is it really? No, we are settling. We are living a life of just being complacent. And so part of the hardest part about the comfort zone is in order to grow, we have to step outside of it. And what's the first thing we experience? And this is a great example here is we jump into the fear zone, right? And so in the fear zone is where we lack confidence, find excuses, and we're affected by others' opinions, right? And so how many of us have sheep out there in our world that, the sheep bad, and all of a sudden we're stepping back and going, hey, did I do the right thing? Should I have done it? Am I supposed to be doing this or that? Rather than having certainty, knowing that this is what God put in our heart and what we're meant to do. And there is no excuses, right? Excuses is just a way of us giving ourselves a way out. And confidence, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we were made in the image and likeness of God, perfectly imperfect. That doesn't mean we're perfect. We're in the process right now, Alex and I and some friends of mine that are doing a Bible study on Peter. And what I love about Peter is half the time he didn't really listen to what he was supposed to be doing. He jumped out passionately and just led by taking action. And sometimes those of us that lead have to take quick action. And that doesn't mean you're always doing the right thing, but it means you're taking action and you're going to be able to recover from that. And so that's part of getting out of that fear zone is taking action and choosing to get out of the comfort zone, step into the fear zone, overcome some of those things. And then comes learning. I mean, so there in the learning zone, you get to deal with the challenges and you take them head on. You don't back away. You don't run away from fear. You don't second guess yourself, and you acquire new skills as you go. And so part of that is you start building up some of that comfort again, right? And it's not a
All right, guys. Hey, we've lost Gio just for a moment. I'm waiting on a message from him. He probably just got disconnected from his computer. He'll be right back on. Thank you guys so much for your patience. This happens, especially it's been happening some more than ever in the pandemic era that we're going through, because a lot of times Zoom and things are overloaded. But as you guys can see, I mean, he's really, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good. Okay. He's really adding a lot of value about stepping out of the comfort zone. Some of the things I heard that Gio was saying just now was that, you know, in order to step out of the comfort zone, you've got to take action. You do. We have to take action. And isn't that something that no matter where we are, no matter what we're going through, even if it's something like some kind of chronic or pathological depression or anxiety, the answers, the solutions really remain the same. You know, I've been a clinical psychologist for over 20 years and been in this field as a marriage and family therapist in so many different realms. The key is always motion of some sort. For instance, I don't know about you, but if you've ever been, I know the way that I work, if I get really pissed off at something, if I get really angry, instant tension, right? Instant buildup right then. And if I sit there and focus on that thing, if I stand still, if I'm not moving, if I'm not progressing, especially with my focus, man, it'll overcome me. And what major depression and things like that are is where people don't move for one reason or another. We're not blaming people. We're not putting people down. We're not judging anyone. We're just observing. What happens is that those people, when they don't move, then they can't progress. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? If I want to get from where I am to where I need to be, I've got to create a process of step-by-step movement. The most advanced, effective form of antidepressant or anti-anxiety is always exercise and movement. Now, I know that's a very, very simplistic answer, but guess what, guys? It's also the most underutilized. It's incredible. You know, we can take you and put you in Maximus's gym or go to Harley's martial arts school, you know, do one of these courses, something like that, even come to Undisputed Mastery, and I guarantee you, you will not be depressed while you're there. You'll be too busy keeping people from punching you in the face or taking you down or looking you in the eyes. We don't punch people to Undisputed Mastery, but we'll be right there with you, looking into your eyes. Guys, in order to move out of that comfort zone, that bubble of depression, I like to call it, man, you know what? You've got to have something that moves you. Now, a part of the problem, especially in a crisis like we're dealing with right now in a pandemic, is that, you know, we may feel really restricted. You know, my mentor, Tony Robbins, says this all the time. It's never a matter of resources. It's a matter of resourcefulness, right? I mean, how many times have we heard that, man? It sticks with me. I've heard him say it so many times. I'll even try to say it like him. It's not a matter of resources. It's resourcefulness, right? I don't know. How was that, Nathan? Was that close? That's how he says it, right? Because it's big and it's true. And there he is, right? And what does that mean? Basically, all that means is that in a moment, just like right now, like Nathan was leading us through, like Harley was talking about earlier, even right here in your home, you can freaking move. You can. Now, moving, right, is the solution. But how in the world are we going to get the juice, the leverage, the force to go? If you were on earlier, you heard our trainer of Navy SEALs, Harley Elmore, talk about three key and very constant concepts of physics: force, space, and time, right? We have got to apply the force. And one of our greatest assets of sources of all time is emotions. And we got Gio back up here. I'm going to admit him again. Let's see if we can get him called back up. Mr. Gio, are you on, sir? See
Hey, too, how's that?
There he is. All right, we got you back. We didn't give up a bit. We just figured, man, maybe.
That's the beauty of life, right? Sometimes we get thrown curveballs and we figure it out as we go.
There it is. All right, Mr. Gio. Good
But
job, bro.
I think I caught on where I left off. So at the end of the day, the learning zone, that's where we learn, we start getting comfortable, and then we step into the growth zone, right? And the growth zone is where we start living our purpose and we start pursuing our dreams and setting those goals and conquering objectives. And ultimately, that's where leaders live most of their life. And the beauty of it is that doesn't mean that we don't go back to the comfort zone and we recognize it's about self-awareness. We become self-aware. Hey, it's time to grow again, time to peel back the layers of the onion. We go back to the fear zone, go through the learning and back to growth. And part of it is we start bringing people through those along with us. The more self-aware we get, the more confident we get, the more capable we are. A bunch of you have probably seen this circulated through LinkedIn, and it's been circulated on Facebook and all kinds of places, which is kind of where this whole thing came from, is who do I want to be during the COVID-19? And so we all went through that fear zone of going in behind the toilet paper, right? Spreading fear and pandemonium for the most part. As I heard this and I heard that, we were watching the news, we were tracking cases, we were looking at what was going on overseas. Then we stepped into the learning zone where we started to get a little more comfortable, but still uncomfortable, right? We started to find a routine in our days, our Zoom calls, our walks with the dogs, our working out without a gym. So many things we started getting comfortable with. And then we got into growth mode, is where we started reaching out to people and building rapport and building relationships. And there's so many great things that come during that time. And so I think that's a big part of where we are today now. And so now I'll tell you, last night, Texas is opening back up. We are 25% in our restaurants. We're getting to 50% on Monday. But I'll tell you, Alex and I went out to dinner last night, and I had some anxiety, and it wasn't like heart palpitating anxiety. It was like, what in the world is this new normal, if you will? There is plexiglass in between all the tables, and it's all been rigged. It's hanging from the ceiling in between, and those are in the booths. In between the tables in the open area, they created PVC pipe kind of instruments with clear curtains hanging down in between the tables. And I'm looking around, our server has a mask on and gloves, and so does everyone else on the staff. And so now we're looking around going, this is the quasi new normal for the short term. Who knows, potentially the long term. And I looked at Alex, I'm like, I want to go back home. And so it was just uncomfortable. And so again, now I'm back in that comfort zone of going, okay, now I got to start settling into this new world. I travel for a living. I live on an airplane going and meeting with clients, going and looking at commercial real estate across the US and Canada. And here I am, we're on a travel ban for my company until the end of September. So I'm having to find a new way to do business, having a lot of conversations. I'm busier than I've ever been, but we're not leading to transactions right now. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on with the current world, both landlords, operators, investors, lenders. And so that's kind of where we are today, is we're trying to figure out what this new world looks like. So, you know, we're dancing again as we step out of this. And some of us are coming out of this environment. Some of us are still have had our lockdown in place extended further. And so we got to start going, okay, what is this? How do we lead our people through this? And some of us have families, some of us have businesses, some of us just have friends. But Keith touched on it earlier. Right now, we're at an all-time high of suicide rates. Addiction is rampant right now because people are stuck in their homes. People can't come out, and so they are faced with that addiction. Their sexual abuse and domestic abuse at an all-time high inside of homes as well. Because again, there's the fear and the stress and the anxiety. And I say those things not lightly, but the world needs people like us now more than ever to reach out and say, how are you doing? How can I serve you? How can I help you? Ask the questions that allows for us to help people overcome this time and get through these stages again. Going back to these, I mean, this is going to be ongoing throughout our entire life. I'm sure if we could sit down with any of you like we've done in the past for Undisputed Mastery, essentially that's what we guide you through. We guide you through these things. We go back and we look at anger, we look at guilt, we look at fear. Ultimately, where are you with God? Whether you believe in a God, whether it's a Christian God, whether it's some other kind of, where are you in your process? Some people are mad at God, and you know what? God's big enough to be mad at, and it's okay. And so this is part of what Undisputed Mastery does. This is part of what Tony Robbins does. This is part of what this is meant to do, is give each of you tools that allows for you to go back and give passionately back to your communities. And again, the only way you can do that is if you're taking care of yourself and going through these steps. And so I'd encourage some of y'all to print this out. I'll post it, or I'll send it out to Coach Keith, and it can go out. And ask yourself, where am I in this process? Am I stuck in comfort? Am I comfortable with where I am and unwilling to change? Well, that's great if you are, but you're not living life like Coach Keith said earlier. If you're not growing, you're dying. And so let's push you out of that comfort zone and get you out of complacency and step into the fear zone and walk you through why it is that you're afraid of. And it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have those feelings. It was okay for me to have the anxiety last night. It wasn't a negative thing. It wasn't spiraling out of control. It was just looking around and being self-aware and going, this is weird. But again, I've been in my home for 8 to 10 weeks now. And so it is a different world. And so I've got to give myself that comfort. And so we'll learn how to deal with these new things as we go back into our workplaces and our desks are separated and there's, people in gloves and masks and so much different stuff. And so back to the word that Keith continues using is we can be brokers of certainty. And so I'm not certain of what that looks like. I'm not certain of where the world's going, but I am certain that God is in control regardless of what we go through. And regardless of what we go through, he's got a perfect plan, and he's going to use all this for the betterment of his kingdom. And things like this program today, what we're doing, what it's going to lead to, some of you might have never heard of this program. Some of you might have never heard me speak or Coach Nathan or anyone else that's spoken today. And you get the opportunity to do that, but it's because we're dealing with this COVID-19 thing. And so it's time for us to step back, look at our world, and find gratitude, because that's where we find peace and comfort and joy, is having gratitude for what we have. Because if we step back and look what we don't have, we're going to be miserable. Coach Keith, that's all I got. Any questions?
Well done, brother. Well done. We've got some great comments coming up. Fear is a natural part of life. It can't be avoided any more than thirst. What is it that we do when fear really hits? And I don't know if you can speak about your own experience with fear and maybe how crippling it's been and what you did to really overcome it, brother.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with me, again, it was all, I come from nothing. I mean, my parents put us through private Catholic education my entire life. I grew up around a ton of money. And so I created an expectation of that's what my world needed to look like. I need to be driving a certain thing. I needed to have the season tickets. I needed to have a certain status. And ultimately, I'll tell you, at 28, I had my own brokerage firm. I had the season tickets to the Stars and the Mavs. I'd go to Vegas and blow 10 grand gambling. I'd buy bottle service and then drink water myself. The bottle service was for everybody else. And I stepped back and I realized, there's some people, unfortunately, or fortunately, we can look at it either way, that find themselves in ditches or in near-death situations or major heavy things. And that's why they changed. For me, I just woke up one day and God touched my heart and he said, there was no anchor in what I was living. It was empty. And so I stepped back, and that set me on this path of going, okay, what do I even do? And the Bible again talks about sometimes we build a tower on sand. And that's what I'd done, is I built this empire on sand, and there was no fulfillment in that. So I had to knock it down and go back to the fear zone and go, okay, I got to start over. And it was scary, I'll tell you, because here I was certain about my livelihood. I had a team, I had a company, I had all these things. And I ultimately, I'll tell you, I started praying to God to remove people out of my life that needed removed. There was over 200 people that came to my 30th birthday. I'm 41 now, so we're on 10 years later. By my 31st birthday, so 12 months later, 90% of those people were out of my life. And I'm telling you, it's not because I wanted them to be, it's because God wanted them to be. And it was in some cases comfortable. They thought I joined a cult because I wasn't going out 5 days a week anymore. And I was going to church consistently, and I was serving people 2 weekends a month, doing exactly what Undisputed Mastery does and helping these people find freedom. I would do it in Austin for 3 days, and then I do it for 3 days up here. And so my life changed from all about me and what is it that I am doing to make me feel comfortable to how can I help other people? Another big person, we've mentioned Tony several times, but Zig Ziglar was one of the big people that I followed growing up. And to this day, he's a major part of my foundation and my belief system. He was actually from Dallas, and he went here to Prestonwood Baptist Church. And Zig would say, if you want to get to where you want to get, help people get to where they're trying to get. And so that's a big part of it, is if you look in the mirror and you're caught up in your world and everything that's going on in your world, I promise you it's going to be miserable, because you're going to find a lot of things wrong in your world and a lot of things that you wish would change. And so you can start making the small steps to change them. But sometimes the best way to change is help other people change, right? And before you know it, you start seeing and growing through these people. And that's part of surrounding yourselves. Multiple people have said, surround yourself with people that make you better, a tribe, if you will, right? Our undisputed mastery team, our team, our sports team. Most of us played sports growing up. And so and now we have them in a work environment. And so what do we do to make ourselves better? And a lot of times it's surrounding ourselves with people that make us better. And so my grandmother used to say, if you look around you, I can tell you who you are by what you see. And so again, I ask, who are you spending your time with? What do you spend your time watching? Who are you pouring into? Who's pouring into you? And so those things have been key for me, but gratitude has been the changing force for me and dynamic, is being grateful for the things that I do have, not the things that I don't have.
Good, excellent. Joey asked a question. Do you feel that we need to exist merely in the growth zone always, or should we aspire to stay in comfort zone to migrate to growth zone, migrate to growth zone, and make the growth zone the new comfort zone and repeat the process?
Yep, that's exactly it, is you keep peeling the layer of the onion back. And I can't tell you throughout this 10-year journey that I was just talking about and focused on, I can't tell you, I think there's been, actually, I know 4 times that I've stepped back, and it's frustrating because I'm like, oh my God, I'm right back where I was, and the anxiety and the fear creeps in. But then I know that means that it's time for me to take the next step. It's time for me to find the next program or the next coach or the next mentor that's going to push me to the next level. And that's what it's about. Is I love the poem that talks about people in our life sometimes for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so we've all had people in our lives that have stepped in and made us be better, whether it be good or bad. For some of us, unfortunately, it's been divorce. For others, it's been death. For some of us, it's just been a bad business partner that we've had to step away from. But in some cases, we've had great friendships, and then we move away, they move away. And so that's a big part of it, Joey. And it's an ongoing repetition. And part of the question you need to ask yourself is, am I in a growth zone? And have I been there too long? And what's next? And I know, Joey, you've poured huge amounts into Tony and his program and Platinum and everything else that goes with that. And some of these other people have too. And so that's a big part, is you're wanting to find additional people that can help you take that next step. You're trying to build relationships. You're trying to get tested. I mean, that's part of what I love about Coach Keith and the men that I surround myself with, is they're going to call me on my crap. And I want that. I'm not the type of person that's smart enough to look in the mirror and go, hey, Giovanni, you're being a jackass. I need someone to call me out and say, hey, this is what I saw you do. This is how it made me feel. This is what I saw do to that person. And that drives me to change, because sometimes we're not self-aware enough to see it in our own lives. Someone talked about that. I think the first speaker said that, is we got the snow globe effect, right? If you're in the snow globe, you don't see everything going on in your world. But if there's people looking in and challenging you, that's the key. And so, Joey, that's a great question. I know you've got powerful people in your life, and I'm happy to sit down with you anytime and have a conversation and ask yourself, hey, where am I? Is it time for the next evolution, if you will?
Well said. Well said. Again, anytime somebody has questions for Gio, you can reach out to me, send me an email, or Gio, I don't know if there's a way that they could do that directly with you.
Yeah, I mean, you've got my cell phone, you've got my email. I'm pretty active on social media. Reach out, and this is my passion.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Giovanni. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Beautiful.